Welcome to the Startup Help Desk. We're your source for answers to questions about starting companies, building businesses, and the meaning of life. We have assembled a whole panel here of entrepreneurs, founders, executives, and investors who have made lots of mistakes in their careers. And we're here to answer your questions and hopefully make sure you don't make those same mistakes. My name is Sean Burns. I was a founder for 20 years of companies like Flurry and Outlier. These days, I'm an investor. I started a VC firm called Near Horizon about 2 years ago. And I'm joined on this panel by Ash and Nick.
Hi, everyone. My name's Ash Rust, and I'm a pre-seed investor based in San Francisco. I mostly invest in companies based in the US and the UK at the idea stage through my fund, Sterling Road. I've also worked at places like Trinity Ventures as an entrepreneur in residence and Bullpen Capital as an advisor. Before investing, I was a founder myself, most notably an early employee at the social media company Clout and the co-founder and CEO of SendUp. These days, I spend most of my time coaching founders, and I've helped more than 1,500 startups over the years.
This is Nick Melionis. I am co-founder and CEO of a company called Navi. Our tools and services help people and organizations start and succeed on their innovation quests. I've supported hundreds of innovators and startups, and I'm hyped to hop into today's questions.
And all of today's questions are about AI. And not only that, they've all been submitted by people just like yourselves. And so if you are a founder of a company or an employee, you have questions about startup companies, head over to thestartuphelpdesk.com and submit your question, or find us on X/Twitter as thestartuphd. We love to get these questions. We roll them up into episodes, and your question could be featured in a future episode. But today, again, all of our questions are about AI. Now, I know no podcast has ever covered AI before. This is greenfield territory. We're going to be the first to cover it.
This is an exclusive.
We've always been trailblazers, and here we go. We get a lot of questions about AI. It is now 2025. It is, I hear, a hot topic. I don't know that. So let's jump in. But before we talk about the questions, Nick and Ash, I have questions for you, which is AI has changed a lot of how many people work. Has AI changed how you work?
Yes, I use it all the time. So I use Google way less now. Like Q&A queries, research queries are now done on ChatGPT and Perplexity for me. I haven't coded really on a regular basis in years, but now both me and my head of operations at Sterling Road push code internally. Vibe coding, and then product search. I think that I have moved away from going to Amazon as my first place to search for a product now. If I'm shopping for something, now I'd probably start on Perplexity as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that in a similar boat for me, it's changed the first interface in terms of how I just get started to do some critical tasks. One, I would say it's easier for people to review a first draft of something than create the first draft. So using AI tools to create the first draft of sales and marketing copy has been huge. I've built some custom GPTs for repeat tasks that I do. And also I love using deep research as a way to investigate and get fresh perspectives for different decisions that could go into how to prioritize what I'm doing.
Nice. Yeah, on similar notes, I use it for coding. It means that I'm not rusty anymore because I don't have to remember obtuse, strange things. It's great for DevOps, by the way, too. It always used to be a black art of remembering the incantations to deploy stuff. You don't have to remember those anymore. And customer research, we do a lot of customer research at Near Horizon. It could be hundreds of interviews with potential customers. I used to hate going through those interviews, trying to extract themes, and I don't have to do it anymore. LLMs, I use Claude a lot. Claude can extract the insights from hundreds of interviews for me. It's like magic. It has changed the way we work. In fact, we can get away with doing a lot more with a lot fewer people, a lot faster. So the promise of AI is real. Okay, let's jump into some actual questions asked by people who are not me. These are actual founders with real problems. The first one up. AI is moving so fast, I don't know whether my product will be relevant in 6 months. How do I plan for such rapid change? I would like to point out, I feel this question on a deep, deep level. Ash and Nick, what do you think?
So I understand there's a lot of concern around this, that the market is moving so fast. There's all these breakthroughs, like how could you possibly keep up? But I don't know if I 100% agree or subscribe to that philosophy. I think if you focus on customers, there's always going to be a lot of value there. Now, I'm not saying that you should ignore AI, right? Use the tools. Right? If you happen to be able to deliver a bunch of value by using the OpenAI API, or maybe you wrapping another model, that's totally fine. I think this idea that like the intelligent models have done everything that you need to, so now there's nothing left to build, is also wrong. But you can, in a vertical agent or some kind of vertical AI situation, you can provide an awful lot of value by using one of these LLMs and then providing more, transformations and changes on top of that. Now, of course, when there is markets moving as fast as they are here, you're going to have to be flexible. Your market might be real estate and maybe it changes overnight because of someone shipping a new product. But just remember that customer needs are not quite as changeable. And so again, focusing on customers and delivering to them what they're asking for in the best possible way using the AI tools is probably going to work out.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of evidence that suggests that deeply understanding your customers' needs, solving an important problem for them, and doing so in a delightful way is very defensible. None of those things necessarily rely on a certain type of technology. That being said, AI technology is something that perhaps could augment your ability to deeply understand these customers' needs and solve the problem. And so I think when looking at this landscape, number one, always make sure your priority is to solve a problem that matters and bring delight to your customers. While doing so, continuously test these AI tools. You may find that it accelerates your ability to solve this problem and deliver value. You may also find that it gives you an edge against competitors and helps shape some of the decisions you make for your business. So big picture, strategically embrace these tools, but stay focused on the problem at hand, which is solving your customer's problem.
I hear you guys. Is there not, though, a shiny monkey problem here, and that there's always a new shiny monkey, no matter what? Things are popping up so fast. So customers either can get hesitant to bank on a new solution because they're not sure what, if they wait a month or wait a week, something else new will be available. Or even if they go with your solution, they easily get distracted by the next shiny monkey that comes along. I feel like there's a question of a market that's so noisy. How do you keep customer interest, even if you are fundamentals based?
Yeah, my feeling there is that if you're solving a problem that's costing people money, they want it solved. And while there may well be a number of options, some of them brand new and innovative, they're not proven. And so if you're right there making a guarantee and you've maybe delivered a little bit of value, you're best placed to win that, larger deal or upsell the customer or retain them.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I don't know. In a market that's so noisy, I think the problem is that the customers can choose to wait, because if they really think there might be even they love your tool, but there can be an even better tool in a month, maybe they're not going to commit, or maybe they're not going to make a decision quickly. It just, what we see, so many AI companies are struggling from extended sales cycles because customers are getting hesitant to bank on this, whereas the next hot thing might be coming down the line. It's a meta problem of the market and the speed the market's moving, which is different than the question. I realize I'm kind of taking some liberties with the question. It's just a fascinating thing.
Really? You're taking liberties.
In my elder years, I find that I can, use a little poetic license. So
people can't see you, but obviously you're smoking from a pipe right now.
me and Gandalf right here. Me and Gandalf, we got it going on.
You live in Oakland, so I guess it could be Gandalf.
So the good news is that makes you guys the hobbits. I love this. This is fantastic. This makes me so happy.
We're in the San Francisco Shire over here. I do go barefoot quite often. So anyway, next question.
Nick, save us.
All right, let's do it. Here's what a founder asked us. This founder said, everyone says you need proprietary data to win in AI, but what does that mean? What data is proprietary?
So I have a controversial opinion. I look forward to Ash disagreeing with me. I don't think there is really proprietary data anymore, at least in the way that I think you mean in AI, which it used to mean proprietary data was information, data you had that nobody else had, that you could use to train machine learning models to produce outcomes that nobody else had because they didn't have the training data. I think that the age of that has largely passed us by. The best example was, it was 2 years ago. I can't believe it was 2 years ago now. It was 2 years ago when Bloomberg tried to train a GPT model with all the proprietary Bloomberg financial data going back however many decades they have data for, and they published it out, and it was beaten by the general purpose GPT model that OpenAI had. Like, there was nothing that the proprietary data enabled that the general models could not perform better. The other problem you have is these days there's so many ways to get at the same data set that even if you have a proprietary data set, someone else can find a way to backdoor into it through some other means. It's kind of amazing how all of the walls that used to exist have broken down because these proprietary data sets, it turns out in general, are extremely small. And so you can't use them to train models effectively. But even if you could, they end up being a drop in the bucket when you're working on a larger model. Are there proprietary data sets that might matter? I mean, if you have, let's say you were selling contracts and you have contracts nobody else has, and I mean, of course, but you're selling the data. You're not an AI business. If that's the case, that might work. But in the AI world, I think the days of proprietary data are behind us. You have to build real advantages. Most of those are at the application layer. Some of those are deep science problems, but the foundation models have taken a lot of those. You have to build applications that have real experiences and solve real problems and not rely on data to be this thing that you stand on, at least in my experience. But Ash, have at it. Disagree with me. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think that there are proprietary data sets out there. I do agree that people are getting a lot better at getting at that data, or maybe even creating synthetic data or alternative forms of that data, such that maybe the advantage is less on a per bit basis. But I do think that there are plenty of data sets that aren't public or are some way restricted. So obviously, Facebook data is behind a login. Reddit data is restricted, and if you use it, they're going to sue you. So those kinds of data sets are unequivocally valuable, in my opinion. And obviously, some models get access to them and some don't, and people pay for that. I think there's also a lot of opportunity in just figuring out data sets that are hard to make accurate. So you can't answer the question of like, how much does it cost for a gallon of milk in America? That is obviously highly variable across the country. And then getting accurate data on how much it costs by town, by city, by county, state, etc., that is also very, very hard. And you can take that out to many, many different use cases. For example, the obvious one is a gas station wants to make sure they're pricing themselves with the local market, and having an API for that would be ideal. And so I think that those kinds of data sets where maybe you're generating data and it's hard to do that generation and make it accurate, that's potentially valuable. And then the other thing is kind of like the arrogance of Western production of technology, which obviously, I'm a big advocate for moving to America. I'm an immigrant myself. But at the same time, I do think that there's an awful lot of data that is really valuable in languages that aren't English. And, the LLMs are pretty much focused around that. And so the data sets in all these other languages are potentially valuable to create and sell, because obviously there's an awful lot of users in other languages beyond English as well.
One question, looking at this from the investor lens, if a startup were to approach one of you and pitch their startup to you, how can they communicate to you with conviction that they've got some proprietary data that gives them an edge? Or, Sean, to your point, perhaps that's not it. What is the way that a startup can distinguish its AI advantage to you as an investor?
There's nothing you could tell me to convince me that you have this proprietary data set that's somehow a foundational, sustainable advantage in your business. Things you could tell me is you have an insight into how AI is going to change how people work in your industry, the fundamental way people have been operating, or you have an insight into the way things that AI has made possible that weren't possible before, in terms of outcomes that you can achieve that just weren't not achievable in the past. Those things get very exciting and very interesting. Often they aren't tied to having proprietary data sets, but they are the kind of insight that you can then build a business around with this kind of thing that goes against how an existing industry was built foundationally, which means the existing players are unlikely to go after it, which gives you a huge opportunity.
Yeah, makes sense. Ash?
For me, it's just customers. Just customers. Like if you have customers that are asking for the data, they are excited about the data, they need the data, they're pressing you because they want it sooner, then those are all really good signs that it's actually a valuable data set. I don't think that me as an investor is a good arbiter of that kind of decision. So I let the customer behavior dictate that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also because Ash already has all the data, and he'll give you some data if you want, but not all the data. He just gives you a little taste to get you hooked.
I give you the data in sets of 3, only expecting one of the data sets to work out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my. Good times. The data.
All right, next question.
Go ahead, Ash. Get us off data.
Yes, before you go into yet another joke, I'm going to save our poor audience here. All right. I read about companies using AI to replace people. Is that real? Should I stop hiring and just use AI?
Great question. Yeah, I don't think that you should just stop hiring. I think the key distinction here is you are hiring for certain jobs to be done, so to speak. And in some cases, you're going to hire people to fulfill that role. And in some cases, you're going to hire AI and the corresponding tools to fulfill that role. And so, of course, the skill set here is you need to be able to identify the requirements for a given job and be able to identify, is it a job that a person is uniquely positioned to address or AI? And then, of course, the additional role that you're receiving now is you're going to have to manage people and manage your AI, manage your tools to make it all possible. So short version is don't just stop hiring, but you're now hiring two different entities given the job.
So it's kind of like how adding Slack to your team makes it harder to manage because you can communicate on more products now.
That's an interesting flavor on that one for sure. And now you got to manage Slack.
That's right. Well, AI is the opposite of Slack. When you bring Slack on, you need to hire more people because people are less productive. Hopefully, AI is making them more productive. It's hopefully the
because it takes them off Slack.
Exactly. That's until all of our AI is on Slack, and then it's all over. I agree with Nick. I would actually take an even firmer stance by saying that I do consistently see companies either eliminating teams or vastly cutting back on the people they need. That includes companies that have gotten rid of their entire content marketing teams. I know some companies that have fired their whole design teams because the tools allow them to create whatever they're trying to create so much faster. They don't need somebody full-time in that position.
And were these people that were doing really high quality work? Because I hear the argument that you're hiring less people, but firing your entire design team and then still expecting to produce like world-class design work, is that realistic?
First off, I don't think most companies produce world-class design work. I also have never believed that design is a big factor in success in enterprise software in particular. And so these are companies that, have established products, but, to your point, they're not designing something from scratch. The design team's job was to create incremental features, and they already have a design system. They already have a general visual design theme. Maybe you don't need them. I mean, long term, I bet there is debt you accumulate by not having people who are thinking holistically about the design of your whole product.
Right.
But it's happening. It's happening today. And the part that shocked me the most, because in my career, the last 30 years, whatever, software engineers have always been in short supply. The last 30 years of my 150-year career. But right now, startup companies are specifically looking at downsizing their engineering teams. That with Cursor and a bunch of the existing tools, the engineers can be that much more productive that I don't need as many people. I've never seen that before. That is amazing to me.
That I agree with, and it pains me to say it, but the thing that really changed my perception there is when companies were pivoting and they weren't afraid of losing engineers. They just fire the whole engineering team and be like, oh no, me and my co-founder can get it started with Cursor.
It's crazy. So it is real that people are getting away with. I don't think it's possible to stop hiring altogether. You do need people to be the engine of what makes a company work. AI is like a productivity multiplier, but you can't multiply 0 by something and expect it to be a big number. You have to have some number of great people there, but it's probably less than you used to. And there are some functions, like, for example, if you're doing large-scale enterprise sales, which is still very relationship-based, you still need someone who can fly and meet the customer in person, and that can't be AI. Yep. So there are some jobs that it hasn't hit yet. I don't know if that will last, to be honest with you. I was shocked by the engineering shift, and so I expect to be shocked again. But it is interesting. I think that the cost basis of starting companies now is a lot lower because you can do a lot more with fewer people. I don't know if we're yet at the point where you can have a one-person multi-billion-dollar business, but I think you can have a few people in a multi-billion-dollar business. I think that it's gotten to the point where the leverage is so high that that's not entirely crazy.
I would say that the things that are very scalable for people are the ability to define precise requirements for something, and then the ability to apply human judgment to decisions, And if you can hire people that can do those two things, then you can also, quote unquote, hire AI. So use AI tools to really build leverage and scale into a lot of the pieces of your business.
And podcasting too, right, Nick?
Oh, 100%.
Although, have you guys used Notebook LLM, which is the Google service, which generates podcasts for you?
That's the one you always complain about being awesome online when you're messing with my blog
It's fantastic. It's amazing.
This is Sean's argument for why Google's actually at the forefront of AI is because they have one product on the internet that works, even though Gemini is literally toilet paper that a child has already used.
Have you not used Gemini Deep Research?
I have not, because I also haven't watched any of the Pokemon movies, because there's more things to do with your time.
If you say so. A lot of innovation coming from lots of different angles. We will, in the future, we'll take a transcript of our podcast, we'll feed it a Notebook LLM, have it generate a podcast, and let the audience decide which one was better. Yes. It's going to be a podcast off.
We should do an analysis of our answers, so that way we can quantify how wrong you are, Sean. I would love that. Does Notebook LLM do that?
It does, but you have to send it over the telegraph system, and Ash, you don't know how to use that. You're too young, so you're going to have to let me take it over.
There's still time for you to teach us Morse code.
Okay, we're out of time. We covered a lot of ground on AI. I'm sure everything we talked about will be obsolete in 3.5 hours, but good luck if you're out there fighting the AI wars. It certainly is an interesting time to be in technology. Who knows where the future will go? In the meantime, Nick and Ash, thank you for not being automated yet.
Hey, thank you both.
Don't be afraid of the machines, folks. See you soon.
But you should be afraid if they are out to get you. Okay, the Startup Help Desk is now closed. We will open again. If you have a question, please submit it on our website, thestartuphelpdesk.com, or thestartuphd on Twitter/X. We will be back, but for now, good luck in building your business.